Hi everyone, welcome back to another big night in the sky. My name is Kenzie Dolan and I am the certified professional astrologer with Ruby Jade Rituals, and I am going to be breaking down a couple different charts here in the month of March that we are about to experience on a collective level. The way I look at it is that we have been front loading the karma of the year in January, February, and March. We started off 2025 with a Mars retrograde, which only happens every 2 years. That began in December and it ended at the end of February. From there, we had a couple days where we could get our footing. All of the planets were direct, but early March, March 1st, we started with a Venus retrograde. And now we are inching our way towards our first eclipse of 2025, followed by Mercury retrograde, the Spring Equinox, which is the Astrological New Year, another eclipse, and then Neptune moving signs, which is monumental, almost as monumental as Pluto moving signs. Now, want to note that the nodes are now in new signs as well that happened on January 11th. So we are working on a completely different axis, spotlighting Pisces and Virgo. So let's go ahead and start with this first eclipse that's happening in Virgo. Now, this is the first eclipse spotlighting Virgo in quite some time. We haven't had this setup since 2008, and really that began back in 2006. So if I just take my calculator and I put in 2025 minus 2006, 19 years ago, that's correct because eclipses might seem like a joker in the pack, a wild card, but they are actually a part of an organized pattern that the Babylonians created a long time ago called cycles. And in these cycles, an eclipse with the same setup, and I'm really talking about the south node and the north node being in particular signs, and we're working with a south node in Virgo, a north node in Pisces. It happens every 18 years and 9 or 10 days. And so that matches up with the math that I just did. Now, in these cycles, there's about 71 to 73 events, and they take 1,280 years to complete. So these are not wild cards. These are a continuation of a narrative that was playing out in your life and in the world back in 2006 to 2008. So it's interesting to look back and think about what you were doing. What I was doing, I was graduating middle school. I was in 8th grade going into my freshman year of high school, and these eclipses ended my sophomore year of high school. So it's interesting to think back what I was doing because I was a kid, and it's crazy to think. Now, with the lunar eclipse in Virgo, before I actually pull up the chart, I just want to talk a little bit more abstractly and get some concepts down. Now, with this eclipse, because we haven't had much activity in the part of the sky ruled by Virgo, to me, we are going to feel this one, especially people that have Virgo placements and really sun, moon, or rising, or north node or south node Virgo placements. And in addition, this is an Earth sign and we are on planet Earth. So I also feel like we're going to be feeling this one. Now, what Virgo actually rules in the body is the nervous system. And these events can chaotic because they bring a lot of change. Bernadette Brady does a really great job of describing what eclipses kind of feel like. And she actually compared eclipses to earthquakes. And she says if something hasn't moved in a while, then eclipses will be felt. But if you're shifting every now and then it won't be that bad. And what our job is to do is to shuffle and move our feet with the eclipse. That way we keep balance in our lives. She also compares it to spotlights that are not always turned on, and that eclipses serve as those spotlights that are finally turned on. Now, lunar eclipses, which is what we're working with on March 14th, those are more emotional and internal, and we are pondering problems of life inside. They're brought on by feelings and thoughts. And so what I want to say is that yes, the body keeps the score, but a regulated nervous system makes the comeback. And Maston Kipp wrote about that. And I think that that's really, really important. That yes, full moons can bring up a lot, they can stir a lot of emotions. And I think it's important for us to ride that wave, release what we need to release, and understand that it's our job to kind of keep our nervous system regulated. So I'm reading a book. It's called Conversations with God. And there's a lot of things that I've been listening to. It's an audiobook, actually, that I feel like really pertains to this eclipse season. And one of them in particular is so in line with my viewpoint and my approach to eclipse season. During eclipse season, I never read for people. I don't take on events. I don't really even try to use these rituals, astrology, numerology, tarot, oracle, during an eclipse season. Instead, I'm trying to go within. I'm trying to connect with my higher self and my angelic field. And one quote in the book that I find so enlightening and so specific to this time frame is, if I don't go within, I go without. So my advice to everybody that's listening is to actually get in your own energy. Say no. Just honestly do less. Less is more. That is what I wrote at the very top of my page. All right, so less is more. I think good things to do would be eat good food. Uh, Virgo also rules the stomach and the digestive tract of the human body. Also, get around pets. Pets are very in line with Virgo. It's something that we have to tend to every single day, and Virgo is a creature of habit. So being around pets can help regulate that nervous system. Okay, so I feel like I have really gone over everything that I wanted to touch on before we brought up the chart. So let's go ahead and pull up the chart. And yes, we'll get it going. So this is a total lunar eclipse. And the reason that I know that is because I'm looking at where the node and where the luminaries are, and I'm looking at the degrees. So in astrology, for it to be considered a total lunar eclipse, it needs to be working with a certain orb. And really, If it's between 0 and 3 degrees, then we know it's a total lunar eclipse. If it's in between 3 to 6 degrees, it could be considered a partial eclipse or total, depending on certain characteristics. Now, anything um, over 12 degrees, it's not an eclipse. But if we're working from 6 degrees to 12 degrees, it could be considered a partial eclipse. So when I look at this, I'm seeing that we're working with a 4-degree orb, give or take, when we're considering the minutes. So that is going to put us in the bucket of 3 to 6 degrees, either considered a partial or a total lunar eclipse. And astronomically speaking, we know that it is a total lunar eclipse, that it is a blood moon. We haven't had a blood moon since 2022. We won't have a blood moon. I don't think we'll have a blood moon. I think we might have one more, maybe this year or next year, but they're very rare. So it's something to note. It's a big event. And the setup of a lunar eclipse is moon, earth, and sun. So earth is coming in between the moon and the sun. And that is why on the moon, we see this red umber shade. And it's because Earth's shadow is being reflected onto the moon while the sun is shining its rays onto the moon. So, unlike a solar eclipse where you need to be in the path of visibility, lunar eclipses are a little bit different. They're visible from all locations where the moon has risen above the horizon. So in New York, this will be visible between the hours of 2:20 to 3:30 a.m. So if you want to see a spectacle that won't be coming around for quite some time, then you need to get up in the middle of the night if you're on the East Coast to see this. But at least you know. So if you want to do it, you can do it. So anyway, we have the components of a lunar eclipse, a total lunar eclipse. We have the components of a full moon, the sun and the moon opposing one another. That always is the marker of a full moon. And so lunar eclipses are full moons times 10. And when I look at this chart, what I see is that, okay, we have, the nodes present, we have the sun and the moon present, and we have a couple other planets present in this particular event. And really, when we're working with eclipses, we want to look at oppositions and we want to look at conjunctions. Any other aspect, it's good to look at. However, the conjunctions and the oppositions are the things that really, really color an eclipse. So the first thing that I see is that Saturn is right by the sun. Pisces being the sign of boundless possibility and being able to dissolve boundaries, is paired up with the planet that loves a boundary. Like I said earlier, we're going to be feeling this one, and this is another marker of that, with Saturn being there. So this one is going to be felt. And the other thing that I see, it's another conjunction, is it's Neptune conjuncting the North Node. The North Node in Pisces is telling the collective to let go and let God, that we are a part of something way larger than what this experience on Earth that we're all experiencing. And when Neptune is in Pisces, it's in dignity, and it's at the anaretic fate degree of 29 degrees in Pisces. Anytime a planet or a luminary or a node is at 29 degrees in whatever sign, it doesn't necessarily need to be Pisces, that is a huge marker of fate is at play. And eclipses, in my opinion, are fated events. There's something that we cannot control. They come into our world to move the needle on human evolvement. We need them in order for things to change. And so this is just saying that yes, we are in a period of change, and this is the last eclipse where we will have Neptune in Pisces, because after this, Neptune is moving on to the preceding sign, which is Aries. So it's very pent up energy where, we want to contract, we want to put a boundary on Piscean things, we want to be realistic, right? But at the same time, these two conjunctions that are side by side, it's like this conjunction with the North Node is really like, no, we need to actually dream a better world. We need to remove the boundaries. So it's almost like two things are happening at once. And so I just feel like it's a lot of energy that is going to be moving. And it's important for us to, like I said, kind of be in our own energy, because we're going to be feeling like we're being pulled in a lot of different directions with this one. These two conjunctions then oppose the moon. So um, that is where all the emotion could be coming up, and that it is probably a good idea to kind of be in your own energy, just because people are going to be sensitive. So while all this is going on um, in the North Node, Pisces is in a position of power. I think Pisces is going to be feeling really good because we are going to be looking at Pisces um, to be like, create the maze and uh, find the way out of the maze, please. That's what Pisces is going to be doing, just like what Aries had been doing for 2 years. Now, Virgo is in a completely different position. It is not in a position of power. Instead it's in the hot seat. And so while Pisces is kind of getting a boost from the universe, Virgo is actually being asked to shed a skin. That is the responsibility when the South Node is in your sign. And so Virgo is being asked to release analysis paralysis. It's being asked to release holding on to things past their expiration dates. And it's being asked to release that hyper critical characteristic it has towards itself and other people. Virgo loves perfection. It loves to fix things. It likes to spin its wheels. It has a computer brain. But the one thing that Pisces teaches Virgo is that you're not right about everything. And in fact, as much as this sign, Virgo, would be a great scientist. All scientists know that you are not right about everything. And that if you have the ability to admit that you're wrong, you're going to be that much closer to getting the answer right. So during this eclipse with Pisces and Virgo, one thing that it just came to me is with these two conjunctions, the answer, we're going to feel a pull to find the answer that's logical and that makes sense. And we're going to want to go with that, right? Because we're told to live life like that in the 3D world. You go with what's right, you stay away from what's wrong. But what this conjunction is saying, and I'm getting chills down my body when I'm doing this, so I know this is correct. And it makes so much sense because in pulling all these little excerpts from conversations with God, and I just got a hold of this book, but it really goes in line with these two conjunctions. What this conjunction with the North Node and Neptune is saying is that, in fact, when it feels wrong, that's when you listen. So I'm going to say that again. When it feels wrong, that is when you listen. And maybe what you thought was wrong is actually right. That is confusing, but that's Pisces energy at the same time. It is trying to figure out what is right, what is wrong, what is reality, what is fantasy. Everything is kind of in a blur. And it's really difficult to figure out which way to go. But if you let go and let God, then you can get there. So with this one, with Virgo, um, sometimes is in the weeds. It's totally in the details. And in the details, we can find a lot of great things. Don't get me wrong, right? The details are great. But sometimes with Virgo, we have the inability to see the forest for the trees. And so it's important for us to realize that we need to somehow get a 360 view of everything. But we know that sometimes we can't do that alone, but that spirit has a 360-degree viewpoint. So we're working with the seen and the unseen. And it's just important to realize that feelings, thoughts, experiences, these are all communications from source energy. They're really meant to come in and they're not a coincidence. And it's important to listen to what comes in during an eclipse. That is why I think it's so important for you to be in your own energy, for you to look out for signs from the other side, because this is when the other side wants to help. So angel numbers are a big thing for me. And I think it's important for people to see what their higher selves wants to say to them, because believe it or not, all of us have Christ consciousness within us. God wants to speak with all of us. And I say God, but it could be source energy, it could be spirit, it could be the universe. Wants to speak through all of us. And the way that it does that is through feelings, thoughts, and experiences. And what could be a measurement of, if this is truly a message from the universe. Well, messages that have an underlying message of joy, truth, and love, that is how you will know. Okay, so when I look at this, I also want to point out that there's a couple of other aspects. One in particular is Uranus. I like that Uranus is here because Uranus is the planet of change, and eclipses do bring in change. And like Bernadette Brady was saying, it's kind of like an earthquake, it's bringing in change. What Uranus is doing with the moon in the south node is that it's trining, it's giving support. To me, that is a sign from the universe that they're helping us out here. And then it's sextiling the North Node, Neptune, the Sun, and Saturn. So this is actually a positive aspect, and that maybe Uranus will help kind of usher in that change a little bit more gracefully. Another thing that I want to point out is that Mercury is the ruler of this eclipse because it is in the sign of Virgo. So where is Mercury? Okay, Mercury is down here. It's in the sign of Aries. But what happens a day after this eclipse? Okay, well, Mercury goes retrograde. So what's so interesting is that, you know, Virgo does like to think before it speaks, but Mercury is not in Virgo. Mercury is in Aries. And Aries kind of has trouble doing that. But what I think is so interesting is that both of these signs, Aries and Virgo, which really are the eclipses for this period, we have one in Virgo, one in Aries. They're side by side. Even though Aries doesn't really think before it speaks, the thing that is so similar to both of these signs is that they typically are the first to arrive to an answer. Aries does that innately, while as Virgo, like I said, has a computer brain and it has all this information that it can arrive to the answer quickly just with all the information that has been funneled through it. So perhaps both of these signs are more alike than we think they are, and that they can both learn from one another. So, what Mercury will be learning from Virgo and this eclipse is is to think before it speaks. And we should always be doing that during a Mercury retrograde. Now, when it's in Aries, it might be a little bit more difficult. So let's go ahead and pull up Mercury retrograde and I can kind of show you that chart. So this one will be a little bit more quick, but this is, excuse me, this is Mercury retrograde. This is the first Mercury retrograde of 3 in 2025. Mercury will be going retrograde about 24 hours after that eclipse. There's change there. What it's doing off the bat is that it opposes the moon in Libra. And that is interesting because it picks up on what we're about to experience with the second eclipse and how the journey that we've been going through with, Aries and Libra. And I will touch more on that on the second eclipse chart. But Mercury will be retrograde up until April 7th. And it will be in the sign of Aries up until the 29th. So from this first eclipse to the second eclipse, Mercury will be in the part of the sky ruled by Aries. And then from the second eclipse to April 7th, Mercury will be in the part of the sky ruled by Pisces, which is interesting because we have a lot of activity in both of these signs. Yes, the lunar eclipse is in Virgo. However, the North Node, the Sun, Saturn, and Neptune are all in Pisces. And then in the second half of the month, we're going to be moving in to the spring equinox, where the sun will be in Aries. Neptune will also be moving into Aries. And we will have, Mercury moving from Aries to Pisces, and also Venus in a retrograde moving from Aries to Pisces. So just super interesting how both of these signs are being spotlighted. Okay, the next chart that we're going to look at is the spring equinox, which is the astrological new year. So the spring equinox happens at 5:02 a.m. on March 20th. That is the first day of spring in the northern hemisphere. It's the first day of Aries season, and it starts the new year. So astrologically speaking, this is our new year. And it gets a head start. It starts right before sunrise at 5:02 a.m. And we have the sun at 0 degrees Aries, 0 minutes. And on this day, we still have Venus retrograde in Aries, and also we have Mercury retrograde in Aries. So we have two planets that are retrograde in this sign. The sun is in Aries, and before you know it, we are going to be moving towards this next eclipse where the sky is actually going to be looking a little bit different, because we're going to be having a outer planet about to enter the part of the sky ruled by Aries, which it hasn't done in a very, very long time. So, another thing that I find interesting with this chart is that the moon is also in a fire sign, which I think it pairs very nicely with Venus and Mercury being retrograde in this sign. There's a little bit of boost, and the fire signs definitely like to get things going. I feel like we'll have a boost of energy on this day in particular. Let's go ahead and pull up the solar eclipse in Aries. Okay, so the solar eclipse in Aries, um, it happens on March 29th at 6:58 a.m. and it is at the ninth degree of Aries. And this is the last eclipse that we will have in the sign of Aries in a very long time. It will be another 18 years that we will have this setup where the North Node is in Aries and the South Node is in Libra. And as we have been, in this particular setup, we have been really learning about what it means to put ourselves first, what it means to release the people-pleasing tendencies and the bending over backwards for people that would never return the favor. And what does it really mean when we put our wants and needs before the wants and needs of others? And that has felt a little uncomfortable to some. But for Aries, it's felt really good. Aries has had a very nice time with the North Node being in its particular sign. Because if you think about it, the North Node helped with this transit that's been going on for quite some time, which is Chiron in Aries. It's been a really intense healing period for Aries with Chiron being there because Chiron doubles its time in two particular signs, Aries and Pisces. And so it's taking a long time to get through Aries. And that boost of energy, I feel like, reminded Aries how fearless it is. Because Aries knows itself. And there's something that is very special about that. And it inspired and encouraged all of us to really step into our power. So I really enjoyed this eclipse axis, actually. I don't have a lot of fire in my chart. And so I feel like I really was looking to Aries and getting a lot of inspiration during this time. 9 indicates that there's a clearing of something old to invite something new in. And really, the way I look at that is that, yes, 9 degrees for this eclipse story is ending, but then we have this amazing transit of Neptune and Aries that begins just one day after. That's where I feel like that one door is closing, but another one is opening. So a day after Neptune arrives in Aries, and it's just an interesting thing. Mercury also this same day moves from um, Aries to Pisces, and so there's just like there's a lot of change. That's what eclipses bring, but I think that the most noteworthy thing is that this is the end of the lone wolf era. This is the final permission slip to be selfish. It's an opportunity to put me first. And really, Libra also is learning how to do that, even though Libra is the sign of we. So it's been a fantastic journey for the whole collective, for the whole zodiac. And really, I think that we should tip our hats off to Aries. All right, so let's think about also what is going on outside of this eclipse. I'm going to first start with just things that have been happening from spring equinox to now. So this is only a 9-day period. Look, 9 is coming through again, but Venus moved back into Pisces, and that occurred on March 27th. So just 2 days before this eclipse, uh, Venus went from Aries to Pisces, and it will end its retrograde motion on April 12th. So there's a little bit more time in that. Let's see. Neptune is about to move into Aries. Mercury is about to move into Pisces. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, when I look outside of this new moon, or sorry, when I look outside of those transits and I really focus in on this new moon times 10, I see that Mercury is really the planet that is most alive in this narrative. And I, the way I look at that is it once again, it's that final opportunity to, think about how important it is to put yourself first, to think about yourself. If you're a type of person that generally is always thinking about other people, this eclipse wants you to actually think about what you can actually change and control, and that is your choices and your life. So also, let's think about the ruler of this solar eclipse, and that's Mars. Where is Mars in this picture? Well, Mars is down here in Cancer, and it's been in Cancer for quite some time. In fact, it really has been there since last fall, and it will be in Cancer for quite some time still. Now that it's finally direct, it will be in Cancer all the way to April 18th, and then it will move into Leo on April 18th and will be in Leo until June 17th. So those two signs, Mars has been in both of those signs and really has been doing some work. And so, Mars being in another cardinal sign, there's lots of energy with, you know, allowing our feelings to kind of guide us in what to say and what to do. Um, I use feelings because Cancer is very in tune with feelings. And feelings, come from within, where emotions are really brought in by external forces. And I talked a little bit about um, conversations with God, and Mars is trining all that activity in Pisces. It's going back to this very spiritual, energetic field in the sky where we have Saturn in the North Node and Venus and Neptune. And really, when Venus and Neptune come together, that's really special. That's a very special conjunction. And going back to that quote is that, Spirit speaks to us through thoughts, experiences, and feelings. So with this, there's something that's telling me that if you were to get a feeling um, on this new moon solar eclipse, that, don't ignore it. Don't ignore it. Now, I talked a little bit about what lunar eclipse stir up. They're more emotional and internal, and you kind of ponder the problems of life, and they're maybe brought on by thoughts and feelings. And so this particular aspect in this chart is almost playing to those notes of a lunar eclipse, something coming from within. But really, solar eclipses are more external, conscious events that are coming in, and we're having to kind of alter our life because of them. And I feel like both of those are actually playing out in this chart. And to me, that makes a lot of sense because this is the final act of this eclipse story. So it is big. It's not going to get as much attention as the total lunar eclipse, astronomically speaking, but astrologically speaking, this is a big thing because we won't have an event like this for another 18 years. The next time that we'll have an eclipse cycle with Aries, Chiron won't be in Aries. This transit won't be going on. So this is a noteworthy time to really have this eclipse because it's allowed a lot of healing for Aries, but allowed the collective to not feel bad for putting itself first. So here, the lineup, astronomically speaking, is the Earth, Moon, and Sun. So that is how it lines up. And we need the Moon and the Sun to be next to each other in order to make a new moon. That is the ingredients of a new moon. Now, this is a partial solar eclipse. if we look at the degree of the sun and the moon, it's at 9 degrees. The node is at 27 degrees. So 27, we need to get up to 29, so 2 degrees there, and then we have 9 degrees from 0 to 9. So 2 plus 9 is 11 degrees. So when we're working with orbs with solar eclipses, we, an eclipse can happen up to a 20-degree orb, but really it's a 15-degree orb. And to be considered a total solar eclipse, it needs to be between 0 and 9 degrees. There is a little wiggle room from 9 degrees to 11 degrees, but it's partial if it's in between 10 to 15. And we are working with an 11-degree orb, but it is considered partial. So now I want to talk about the Sero cycle. So the Sero cycle, these are where it makes these eclipses actually not so random. This is when we get into an organized, set of experiences. And so I'll start with the lunar eclipse that's happening on March 14th. So that lunar eclipse is a part of Sero's 123, which began in the year of 1087, and it goes all the way to 2367. But it is a part of 123. And remember, these eclipses are in a Saros cycle that have anywhere between 71 to 73 events. This one has 72, and the eclipse on March 14th is the 53rd event. So we're getting closer to the end of that. The Saros cycle that March 29th is attached to is 149. 149, give me 1 second. I just want to make sure that I'm pulling up the correct. Yeah, that's correct. 149 has begun on year 1664, and it goes all the way into 2926. And they were doing the math a little differently here. This one seems to have 70 events, and the one on March 29th, 2025, seems to be one, two, seems to be give around anywhere between the 20th to 23 event in this Sero cycle. So that one is actually beginning a little bit. It's more close to what the year is now. So it's not as old as the lunar eclipse that we will be experiencing on the 14th. So I'm going to show one more chart, and it's Neptune entering Aries. And I want to say that we haven't had Neptune in Aries since 1875. So this is a big night in the sky. This is like going to definitely be shaping the next 14 years. So it's something to note. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share that. All right, so Neptune enters Aries on March 30th, the day after the solar eclipse in Aries at 7:58 a.m. There it is, Neptune at 0 degrees Aries, 0 minutes. We also have the sun at 10 degrees Aries. We have Chiron at 22 degrees Aries, and the moon has already moved to 24 degrees Aries. That's how quick the moon moves. So we do have a stellium in the sky with Aries, and it is relatively positive. I mean, the sun and the moon, we just had this big monumental event with a solar eclipse in Aries. Makes sense to see both of them there. Chiron has been in Aries for quite some time. There's nothing new here, but we have Neptune in Aries. And Neptune in astrology is where we seek God, where we find God. And the way that I look at it is after all these eclipses in Aries, where we have learned to put ourselves first, and that we've learned that it's safe to put ourselves first, and it's safe to put our own healing first, with Chiron being there. That maybe we will find God in ourselves, because we all have Christ consciousness. And God specifically created all of us because he wanted to see um, life experienced through a bunch of different lenses. So we are all a part of God. God is all a part of us. And so I think that the lineup of these events, it's not a coincidence. I think we needed the solar eclipses in Aries to help us heal with Chiron and Aries. But then now with Neptune moving in Aries, we needed that precursor, because we're going into a period where there is going to be a lot of, I think, self-sovereignty. There is going to be a lot of need to go within and to get in your own energy. And that is what I started with, and that is what I'm going to end with. I appreciate you so much for listening. This is about an hour long, but it really is exciting to know that people want to listen and learn about astrology. If you do want to learn any more about astrology, I do have astrology salons through the new wave of witches. You can go on Eventbrite and figure out when those will be taking place. I will be opening up my books after eclipse season to read, to take on events. And then I'm so excited to begin hosting again Circle of Life support groups in person here in Brooklyn. So if you're interested in one of those, you can reach out to me and I can give you the details. Anyway, I appreciate it. Be an active listener. Don't push. This energy is really potent, lots of change. It's not a time to um, walk upstream. It's instead of it, it's a time to wade in the stream and kind of get cleansed. But I appreciate it so much, and I will see you next time for a big night in the sky.